Back here in the top of the 8th, we're joined by a special guest. Dan Shea to my left. I'm Gavin Bicho. MLB All-Star, World Series champion, and Cincinnati Reds Hall of Famer Bronson Arroyo. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a rare opportunity that we have here, and we had a great game here between Newport and Ocean Sate. What brings you here to Newport, Rhode Island, as we see Aiden O'Connell warming up on the hill for the Gulls?
Yeah, actually, when I played for the Red Sox, you have some friends that you meet along the way, and one of them is a guy named Joe Maston, and he's actually went to school with Aiden's father.
Oh, wow.
And so over the last few years, every other year, I usually come to Newport. We play some golf at the Equidnet Club with Mark Horan, who is here with the Gulls. And, so I was in town playing some golf. It worked out that he's pitching tonight. We want to come down and see some baseball.
And is it your first time at Cardines Field, or have you been here before?
I was here the other night, so I was at the last game, so this is my second time.
How about that? I mean, we've had a great game on hand. Obviously, Aiden's been put in some really good spots, but as a baseball player yourself and a pitcher in some of these games, especially you took a look at the hit total, 4 runs on 1 hit. To be on the other side of that as a pitcher, what has always kind of been talked about? You have a lot of walks that have scored runs. Does that come up that often?
Yeah, I mean, they always say walks kill, right? So it's like one of those things where you're trying not to give up free bases, but, the game is so difficult. Every night is different, and that's what's so beautiful about the game of baseball. People would ask me, do you play a lot of music, Bronson? Do you love playing music more than baseball? And I always would say baseball was more interesting because you never know what you're going to get night in and night out.
As Brinker starts off the top of the 8th with a single up the middle. I mean, we were talking about O'Connell at length when he came in, the athleticism that he has, obviously being from New Hampshire and in the area. We've seen his family come by and his extended family as well. He'll face off against Zach Plashert, who is 1 for 2 with a double, and a walk came around to score in the 6th. But originally from Key West, Florida, how is it like growing up down south? Myself, go to the University of Miami. You've made a couple trips to Key West, a beautiful place. What was it that like playing high school down there, growing up, and kind of kicking off your baseball career there?
Yeah, Key West was such a unique place, such a small island, having to travel so far to play people. But it was a very competitive town. There was a lot of Latin influence. My father was from Cuba, and there was just a lot of baseball around town. So it gave me the sense of playing kind of under the lights. Like we would play right in the middle of town. You were playing under the lights at night.
Yeah.
And it gave you, that nervousness you get at a big league ballpark. And you don't normally get that in a little league, at 7, 8, 9 years old. So it was a joy to play there. And then I moved a little bit north of Tampa when I was a little older. And kind of my father wanted to expose me to a little bit more baseball. And so I wound up playing with A.J. Brzezinski in what I call my hometown now, a little town called Brooksville, Florida. He was my catcher when I was 13 years old. And to have 2 guys come from the same small town, play 15 years in the big leagues East was pretty unique.
And Brzezinski had a phenomenal career with the White Sox, had a stint with the Red Sox as well, as the count moves to 2-2 from O'Connell trying to settle back in after a leadoff single was administered. And you were drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in '95. What was that process like going through those first couple of years? Obviously, kind of similar to summer baseball where you're working up the ranks, playing almost every day in June, July, and just do what you can to work up a system.
Yeah, this ballpark has been a joy to be in because I haven't been in a minor league ballpark in a long time.
Right. And
the closeness of the fans and, the shenanigans that go along with, the kids running the bases, all the things. It's such a beautiful feel. And, coming up those first couple of years, you didn't know how difficult it was. You weren't making any money. And, the games were hard. Like you said, the dog days of summer, they could get long playing 142 games in the minor leagues. But, you were thinking about the big leagues. So it just didn't bother you. You're looking at your eye on the prize. You were trying to get to the show.
As striking out, swinging is Plashert. Now here comes Brandon Durand, who has reached twice but has run into his fair share of base running struggles, getting thrown out at home twice today. He flew out to right field back in the 4th, trying to move along Brinker, who remains at first. There's a foul ball into the netting.
Yeah, and Bronson, as you touched on a little bit there, during your minor league experience, kind of the light at the end of the tunnel of ultimately getting to the big leagues was something that helped fuel you. For guys on this field in the NECBL who may be MLB draft hopefuls, how do you balance the expectations of knowing that may be in your future, but just still trying to perform the best you can day in and day out?
Yeah, it's tough sometimes, especially the excitement of scouts coming around and thinking you might go in the draft. But it comes down to the same thing that we say every day. It's like, you're trying to focus on one day at a time, trying to perform tonight. And then, once you get into an organization, there's still that, now information
There's a deep fly ball into right that drags Bolton towards the corner, and he makes the grab. Duran, his pop isn't enough to get behind the glove of Bolton, who moved over quickly to make that second out.
Information travels so easily now through the internet that, you have guys in the minor league systems who are always, they know about trades and they know about player moves before sometimes the organization even tells the player. And so I've seen in the later years that I played, you would see guys just almost have anxiety about, does the organization like me? And I would try to tell these guys, listen, just pitch it wherever you're at. Try to put up 150 innings as a starter, and you'll see what happens, man. You get to the big leagues, you get your opportunity, hopefully. But, to be an A-ball or double-A and constantly be looking up and saying, when are they going to call me to triple-A? When are they going to call me to the big leagues? It's something that's not useful. And so I try to tell guys to just be present tense and try to perform here. I played 7 years in the minor leagues. I have 1,100 minor league innings and 84 wins down there before I ever played in the big leagues, right? And so it was like a whole other lifetime down there. But it was a joy to go to these small towns like Charleston, South Carolina, and perform in front of fans, like a ballpark just like this.
I think something similar could be said with that similar task at hand, trying to move up with some of the players in the transfer portal nowadays, trying to make their name known and go to another school or to a bigger conference or a different division.
Right.
We see it across the NCBL. We have players Division 3 through 1 in conferences from the low majors all the way to the SEC in the ACC. Could something as well could come into play. We talked about how these summer innings are bigger than ever because of how much it rises a player's stock, and you have a lot of players playing for a lot more on the line.
Right, absolutely. I had the conversation with Aiden the other night because he came from Vanderbilt, didn't pitch this past year very much, and he's just getting into the portal and doesn't know where he's going to end up this picture. And it's extra pressure for these guys bouncing around like that in musical chairs, but hopefully guys can stick in one place and get 2 or 3 years under their belt.
Connell gets 3 straight outs after a leadoff single. We'll stick it here in the middle of the 8th and keep on chatting with you here, Bronson. But I want to talk about your time in Boston. Obviously, a World Series champion. You had a very infamous play with Alex Rodriguez. But before we get that, kind of touch on, you were on the Paw Sox for a little bit, and McCoy Stadium getting knocked down. A lot of Rhode Islanders upset. They really loved the Paw Sox. It was a staple of the community. What do you remember from your time up north in Pawtucket?
For one, I remember the energy in the stadium. It was one of the coolest stadiums that all the kids used to take the strings and they would hang the baseballs down. You'd sign them and then they'd pull them back up. That was kind of unique. I'd been playing for a long time in the minor leagues and never seen that. But Ben Mondor was the owner of the team back then, and he just was a very classic guy. He kept the ballpark kind of just baseball friendly. And it was a joy to play in Pawtucket. I was only there from the beginning of the season through August, so I got about 5 months there. But I had played in 7 other cities before that, and I played in the big leagues already parts of 2 years, and it was some of my best time. And you could also feel the energy from Boston, right? It was so close that you could feel like, hey, I might be in the big leagues here. And Fenway Park was a different ball game, right? I had played in Pittsburgh for a couple of years, but knowing that when you turn on the TV and you see Pedro Martinez standing in Fenway Park, it's kind of a different animal. And it was nice to get there, and it was good that I had a couple of years under my belt already at the big league level, because had I been thrown into Fenway Park as a 23-year-old rookie like I was in Pittsburgh, the moment would be very hard to wrangle. It'd be hard to suppress the adrenaline playing against the Yankees at that young of age.
Yeah. And so kind of going forward, you started having more and more success throughout your Red Sox career that led you to Cincinnati for a lot of solid years. It got the Cincinnati Hall of Fame, which is obviously something that is no easy feat.
Right.
It means you've made one heck of an impact on a franchise. Was there a moment that you played through your career, whether it was with the Red Sox or early on with the Reds, where you felt insanely confident in your ability and you could tell yourself, yeah, I'm a big leaguer, I'm a mainstay, I can do this for a living?
Yeah, that came in a Red Sox uniform, because when I was in the Pirate organization, I was 40 games over 500 in the minor leagues. I was always confident in my abilities, but when I got to the big leagues with the Pirates, they were always second-guessing my velocity. It was like, can this guy get big league hitters out throwing 87 to 91, kind of living that 87 to 89, and people weren't sure that a skinny kid like me could handle a pounding of every fifth day out on the mound. And then, I get to Boston. We win that World Series. I go to Cincinnati and pitch 240 innings and lead the league that next year in innings pitched. And it kind of solidified me as a frontline major league starter, and it gave me the opportunity to relax. When you know you're going to get the ball every fifth day, it changes the way you view the game. You're not looking over your shoulder all the time thinking that people are second-guessing your ability.
As Colby Wallace watches ball one inside, he'll kick off the home half of the 8th inning in what has been a back-and-forth game, a wacky one at that. Newport has scored 4 runs on only 1 hit. I can't say I've watched many ball games especially collegiate, where we've seen these kind of splits. Ocean State doing it really well, 9 hits, 5 runs as well between these two rivals in the state of Rhode Island. And now, Bronson, you've kind of moved on to a bit of a music career for yourself. Is that something that continued throughout your playing in the major leagues, or did that kind of spark at the end of your career?
It started in the minor leagues with the Pirates. I was in AA. I was 22 years old in a little town called Altoona, Pennsylvania. And I picked up an acoustic guitar, just wanted to sing songs that I heard on the radio, and it slowly just became something that you knew was going to be a part of your life after the game. Yeah. And now I've written about 40 folky songs this past year with a kid named Joe Jordan, who's on Atlantic Records.
Congratulations.
And I'm starting to put some of those songs out as well. He is. And I put out a couple rock records over the years, but just being on stage with a full band about 20 times a year around Cincinnati, playing Pearl Jam, Nirvana, the Beatles, Tom Petty,
classics.
REM, Oasis, those bands, it's still just a rush, man, to be up on the stage and have a band that just sounds good and you can try to give a show physically. And I'm still peeling back the onion on trying to be a performer in a lot of ways, I've been playing the guitar for 25 years now, and I'm still not that comfortable just standing and singing with a guitar. People look at me and say, oh, it looks fantastic, but that you're always working on the craft. It's like you go down in the basement, it's like, can I play this song in a different way? Can you play it softer? Can you try to give yourself goosebumps? So, there's so many factors to trying to be comfortable in that arena the same way it is on the mound. And for people who started playing baseball as I did as a 5-year-old, you're comfortable in the circle on the mound, but on stage it's a different ballgame.
And does that rush, does it translate from baseball to when you're doing one of those concerts, playing those hits? Do you get that same kind of feeling, those jitters?
Yeah, absolutely. You have the butterflies on the stomach before the show, and you're warming up, and everybody's got a routine in the band. And it's actually exactly the same, except I usually tell people that when you're a baseball player, you're not paying attention to really the crowd. You might hear them in the backdrop, but you're really playing for yourself and for your teammates. Musically, you feel like you are solely playing for the people standing in front of you. So there is a little bit more of a personal connection with the music. But it's still, like I said, when you've done something since you're a 5-year-old kid, I'm much more comfortable out on the mound than I ever have been on a stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, discussing your musical inspiration a little bit there, you mentioned kind of a wide range of bands there, grunge artists like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, more classic like the Beatles, Oasis, who will be reuniting in a couple of days. Right. Are you excited for that?
Oh, yeah. Last time I saw them was in Philly, and it was a good show. It was in the mid-2000s before they shut it down, and I'm really pumped that they got back together, yeah.
So where would you say that your musical inspiration mostly stems from, as that was kind of a wide range of artists that you went into there?
I think the original stuff it's from the Seattle sound. I was 1992, I'm a freshman in high school, and it's like, Stone Temple Pilots hits, you got Soundgarden, you got Nirvana, you got Pearl Jam. All the stuff that came out of Seattle was really kind of what sparked it. I had been in the weight room as a young kid with my father, lifting heavy weight for long periods of time.
This is a deep drive into left field. Opening the barn door is Durand, who makes the play out there. Really nice job, as we talked about, Durand moving from catcher. He's been out in the outfield the last couple of games. He makes a grab on a really well-hit ball from A.J. Vasco for out number 2 after Wallace grounded back out to the pitcher.
But listening to the Mamas and the Papas and the Beatles and Billy Joel and James Taylor in the weight room with my father as a kid, I loved that music, but there was something about that grunge that felt more real to me. It gave me goosebumps, man, listening to Scott Weiland. And so that turned my head on to thinking, like, maybe I want to sing a little bit. And next thing you know, I had a guitar, and I was just kind of hack my way through it.
That's great stuff.
Ryan Novak watches ball 1 away as Ocean State, new pitcher on the mound, in for Nolan Peel.
It's going to be Cole Furman, the lefty out of West Virginia, checking in for the Waves. He's gotten the first 2 outs with relative ease, looking to move through this lineup quickly.
And now Novak up 2-0 after he struck out in the 6th, but walked in the 5th, came in for Cade Brown, who injured his leg out in left, was able to stick it through his first AB, but not much longer after he was replaced by the Miami of Ohio product.
And Bronson, when you find yourself in a situation at the mound like what we're seeing Furman in here, he's moved through the beginning of the inning with relative ease. You've got 2 outs, nobody on. How do you go about just kind of staying locked in for that last batter and not getting too far ahead of yourself where I've gotten the first 2 outs, this inning's just about over?
Yeah, you're trying not to relax. You're definitely, like in this situation here, you're definitely not trying to go to a 3-1 count. So you're trying to get in the zone as he just did there, make it 2-2, and just see if you can try to put a guy away without putting yourself in a vulnerable situation. Because, when you come in a game like this out of the bullpen and you've had a great inning right now and you go middle in, maybe he pops one out of the park and you're like, it ruins your night. So, maybe he's staying down on the way here. Make sure he can nullify his power a little bit if he does give up a hit and still give him a chance to get out of inning.
He goes down and a bit away. So who would know, the MLB veteran All-Star World Series champion.
But, everybody's got their own style, too. Somebody was asking me tonight about did I ever pick up anything from Kurt Schilling or Pedro Martinez when I played with those guys. And, everybody's skill set is so different. And I was a guy who lived pitching backwards, throwing a lot of breaking balls in fastball counts and stuff. And our skill sets didn't really line up. So it was hard to really take something physical from those guys.
As there's a deep drive into right field. This game is tied. Ryan Novak makes Furman pay, and it's a 5-5 ball game.
And those are some of the most frustrating things you could. I have a handful of at-bats in my entire career where I had a 3-2 lead in Milwaukee, and I had Jim Edmonds at the plate, and he grounded out twice already to second base on changeups away, and I tried to go middle in and see if I could sneak one in. He hit it out of the park and tied it, and you just get the no decision, and you just want to pull your hair out.
Yeah, you foreshadowed it a little bit there, kind of predicting what Furman might fall into, as that ball was absolutely crushed by Novak, picking up his first hit of the evening and tying up this game.
And no bigger hit than there, and that ball was just 80 miles an hour, middle up. That's a pitch that Novak and many of these collegiate baseball players that play at a high level don't miss that often, as there's a tall wall out in right field, but was able to get it up and over the ivy, as Garrity was stuck looking up into the night sky for quite some time. And just like that, it's 5-5, and Newport has only needed 2 hits to get to this point. But sometimes if you can get those walks that do kill as a pitcher and you can make them count, that's what matters. And a big thing for Newport is been able to manufacture runs with 2 outs. We saw it yesterday with multiple circumstances, being able to score with no one on in 2 ways. Maybe one of the biggest strengths for an offense. Would you agree there, Bronson, when you face an offense that's top to bottom complete and can never let your foot come off the gas a little bit, does that always give you a little more of a challenge on the mound?
Oh, for sure. Pitching against the Yankees in those years, and really everyone in the American League East, the lineups were so deep. When you have Jorge Posada hitting in the 7-hole with 25 homers, there's no let up, and because you didn't have a pitcher. I enjoyed being in the National League a little bit more because you could pitch around the 8-hole guy and then work with a pitcher. So you had some variables you could move. But being in the American League, it was a grind every out, the entire game. And it made it really difficult to get into the 7th inning because of that.
Well, that strikeout concludes the 8th, and we got a 5-5 ball game going into the top of the 9th. Bronson, thank you so much for joining us. That was just phenomenal. We were both surprised when we got the call that you were coming in, and we kind of had to do a little bit of a double take, but we really appreciate it. I bet, obviously, Newport as well loves having a player like you come here and witness what Cardines Field and the magic it brings. And best of luck with not only your music career, but the golf game as well. I play the Quintet Club, tough track. So, maybe a couple good swings going to your future.
They've rolled the greens, too, so now it's tough.
The stip meter is probably wicked high.
Yeah, they're up there.
All right, well, best of luck the rest of the way out. Thank you again, and feel free to stop by anytime. We'd love to have you back on.
Cool, man. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Bronson Arroyo. We'll take a short break as Newport gets going into the top of the 9th. Aiden O'Connell back on the mound. You don't want to miss this ending from Cardines Field.